Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place where we take your source material, dig into it, and pull out the most important insights for you. And today, we've got a really interesting one. Our source is, maybe surprisingly for some, popular Beethoven magazine.
That's right. Not exactly the first place you'd think of for this kind of analysis.
Definitely not. The piece is titled, Who Do They Really Represent? UK's Labour, the UN, and the Betrayal of Victims. It's quite provocative. Levels some very strong accusations.
And that's the striking thing, isn't it? Finding this kind of political commentary there. But our goal today, just to be clear, isn't to say if the author is right or wrong.
No, absolutely not.
We're here to neutrally lay out what the author argues, look at the evidence they present, and really understand the specific perspective coming from this source. It's about knowing what's being said.
Exactly. So let's dive in. The author kicks things off immediately with some strong language.
They do. They talk about, and I'm quoting here, nauseating bias and groveling servitude to Islam from the UK, the UN, and half the West's spineless elites.
Wow. Okay. So no punches pulled right from the start.
None at all. It sets a very critical tone. And then they pivot quickly to the UK, specifically focusing on the issue of grooming gangs.
Right. A very sensitive topic in the UK.
Highly sensitive. The article claims tens of thousands of white British girls have been systematically raped and trafficked. This becomes a central part of their argument against the UK Labour Party.
And this is where they really zero in on the language used, isn't it?
Yes. The author calls it Labour's genius move to label discussions around this as Islamophobic. They argue Labour prefers the term men of Asian origin,
which the author then critiques as being unfair to.
Yeah.
Who was it? Poor Japanese and Mongolians, is the rather sarcastic phrase he is. They're basically challenging how the issue is framed linguistically.
Got it. And then they tackle the word phobia itself.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting section. They challenge the idea of Islamophobia being an irrational fear, a phobia. The author cites over 45,000 plus Islamist terror attacks worldwide since 9/11.
And also claims 80+% of gang rapists being Pakistani Muslims in the UK. Now, based on these figures they present, they argue the fear isn't baseless panic,
but rather
a rational response to a bloody reality, in their words. So they're trying to redefine the term, framing it as logical, not phobic.
Okay. And they wrap up this section on labor with a direct challenge.
A very direct one, asking Labour, who are you serving? Will you start protecting your citizens above all the girls and women, or you keep on polishing your woke badge? It's clearly rhetorical, questioning their priorities.
Right. So after labor, the author turns their attention to the UN.
And the language gets even stronger, if anything. They call the UN the House of Darkness, Den of Liars and Thieves.
That's incredibly harsh. What's the justification given in the article for that?
Well, they build their case around a comparison. They point to the terrible Christchurch mosque attack in 2019, 51 people killed.
Yes, I remember that tragedy.
And the author notes that event led to March 15th becoming the UN's International Day to Combat Islamophobia. They use this as a sort of benchmark for UN action.
Okay, so that's one side. What's the contrast they draw?
The contrast is what they call a deafening silence from the UN about, quote, the relentless, systematic butchery of Christians in their churches.
A deafening silence. And do they provide evidence for this claim?
Oh, yes. There's a very, very long list of incidents. They mention Sri Lanka's Easter bombings in 2019, killing 269. Pakistan in 2016, 75 killed, though they listed under churches, despite noting it was a park, which is an interesting detail.
Okay. What else?
DRC Congo, 2025, 70 decapitated in a church. Iraq, 2011, 58 massacred. Nigeria comes up repeatedly, 2012, 2022's Pentecost Sunday attack, 2011 Christmas bombings, another in 2012. Egypt, 2, Palm Sunday, 2017, attacks in 2016, 2011, 2017 again.
That is quite a list already.
It goes on. Burkina Faso in 2024, 2 incidents. Russia, Dagestan 2024, and another in 2018. Indonesia, 2018 and 2000. Philippines, 2019 Jolo Cathedral. Pakistan again, 2015. Even Germany, the 2016 Berlin Christmas market truck attack near a church. And France, 2016, the priest killed during Mass Turkey, 2024.
Wow, so the author is compiling a significant number of specific events targeting Christians, specifically in or near churches, according to their list.
Exactly. They tally it up, claiming over 1,000 Christians slaughtered in their own churches alone, and make the claim about Nigeria losing one every 2 hours. It's meant to show a pattern of targeted violence.
And the author explicitly links these incidents.
Yes, very explicitly. After listing them, the article states, one thing is common in the murderers, Islam. That's presented as the connecting thread by the author.
So bringing that back to the UN critique.
The argument is that this scale of violence against Christians gets that deafening silence. They pose the question, one mosque attack gets a global holiday, thousands of Christian deaths get a collective yawn.
And they broaden this critique beyond just the UN.
They do. They bring in social justice warrior friends in BLM marches and campus protesters mentioning made in China terrorist scarves. They ask if Black Lives Matter if they are practicing Christians in Nigeria.
Implying a selective focus.
That's the implication, yes. Suggesting these groups are, in the author's view, indoctrinated to vandalize only Washington and Churchill statues, ignoring other forms of suffering.
Okay. So that covers the critique of the UN's response to violence.
Yeah.
But the article goes deeper into the UN's structure itself, right? Its human rights work.
It does. It talks about the UN's alleged moral rot, specifically pointing fingers at its human rights bodies.
How so? What's the specific claim?
The core assertion is that the UN lets China, Iran, and Saudi Arabia play human rights superheroes. They offer details for each.
Okay, let's hear them.
For China, they mention the alleged Nazi-style Uyghur concentration camps, with around 2 million inmates, yet China sits on the Human Rights Council and influences its Peace and Development Fund.
The Human Rights Council itself
Okay.
and Iran.
With Iran, the article points out that women can be jailed for showing their hair, yet Iran chaired the Human Rights Council's Social Forum in 2023 and has led disarmament talks.
Disarmament talks.
Ooh.
And Saudi Arabia.
The author claims women's rights there are stuck in the Stone Age, but Saudi Arabia chaired the Commission on the Status of Women in 2024.
The body dedicated to women's empowerment.
Precisely. The author presents these as glaring contradictions, fundamentally questioning the integrity of these appointments.
And they pose a question about this directly.
Yes. Who thought putting these regimes in charge was a masterstroke? Who do these appointments serve? The oppressed or the oppressors pulling the strings? It challenges the UN's decision-making process.
Okay. Then there's another major point about the UN's focus.
Yes, the article pivots to what it calls the UN's obsession with Israel.
An obsession. What data do they use?
They state that between 2015 and 2023, the UN General Assembly passed 154 resolutions critical of Israel. And they contrast this by claiming that's more than double the 71 against the entire rest of the world, combined in that same period.
More than double against Israel compared to all other countries.
Right.
That's the statistic they present.
That's the claim. And to hammer the point home, they list countries they call dictatorships and theocracies. China, Saudi Arabia, Cuba, Qatar, Pakistan, Turkey, and several others that allegedly received 0 General Assembly resolutions during those years.
0 for those countries, according to the author.
Correct. And the author concludes that section quite abruptly with enough said about the UN, implying the evidence speaks for itself from their perspective.
So the article critiques labor, then critiques the UN on multiple fronts. How does it tie these together?
It brings them together by stating, labor and the UN are essentially cut from the same cloth.
Meaning?
Meaning, in the author's view, both are more invested in narratives than lives. That's the core connection they draw.
Can you elaborate on how they apply that to each?
Well, for labor, the argument is they're so busy policing grooming gangs, as a term, it forgets the girls raped daily, only reacting slightly, like smoke, when there's public outcry. So narrative over victims.
Okay, image over action in their view. And for the UN.
Similarly, the UN is accused of focusing on one mosque attack but ignores Christian bloodbaths, while simultaneously letting tyrants run its human rights circus. Again, the narrative or the politics seems to trump the reality of suffering, according to the author.
So the overarching theme is a claim that both institutions are. What was the phrase?
Allergic to truth if it offends the wrong crowd. That sums up the author's unified critique.
Right. And the article finishes by putting some questions back to the reader, to you listening.
Yes, some very pointed questions. Is the UK still civilized enough to protect its children and young girls? Is the UN a beacon of justice or a rotten stage for hypocrites?
Stark choices presented there. And does the author offer their own answer to the title question, who do they really represent?
They do, very clearly. The answer given is, not the girls of Telford, not the Christians of Nigeria, not the Uyghurs in Xinjiang.
So who do they represent, according to the author?
They represent power, radical left politics, and the ones clicking on the transfer oil money button. That's the author's conclusion on who benefits.
And the very last line.
A rather bleak one. The rest of us, we are just collateral damage.
Okay. So that concludes our walkthrough of this piece from Popular Beethoven magazine. We've laid out the author's arguments, the specific claims they make about UK labor, about the UN, the data points they chose, the comparisons they drew. really unpacking their perspective.
And it's definitely a strong perspective. Understanding these different viewpoints, even the really challenging or provocative ones like this, is, well, it's crucial if you want to be truly informed about the conversations happening out there. This article voices a real sense of betrayal, questioning the core priorities of major institutions.
Absolutely. So here's something to perhaps think about as you go about your day. When you encounter these strong opinions, maybe from unexpected sources, packed with statistics and comparisons, how do you start to figure out who different organizations or even different commentators truly represent? What values are really driving their actions or their words? Something to mull over.